Tim Kernan for Ben McLaughlin. Ben's off for a couple of weeks. Spent a little time with his baby daughter, Kennedy. Great to have Tim with us here tonight. We pried him away from watching NBA exhibition basketball from Orlando. Right?
Yeah, it was, I wouldn't say quite right. In fact, I was, Greg, tracking my St. Louis Cardinals, taking the Royals to the woodshed right now. They're up by more than a few runs. That's what I was keeping track of. But, no, I'm glad to be here co-hosting Sports Nightly with you. I know the people want less of Ben. They want more of me. We're really just giving the people what they want. So I'm glad to be serving that capacity.
Yeah, there's a lot of people nodding right now. Yeah, that's exactly that's exactly right. Did you sample? You didn't sample any NBA today, huh?
No, I should have. I'm not. I wouldn't call myself an anti-NBA crusader by any means, but I am also not being a dude from the Midwest. I'm not as in the NBA as I should be. Ostensibly, I'm a Celtics fan. Me and Ben both, because Ben's just a Kemba Walker fan, jumped on that bandwagon. So am I. I guess I'm more of a Brad Stevens kind of fanboy. But the weird kind of bubble basketball thing, I don't know if I've already. NBA regular season games already put me to sleep. I'm not sure if I could get through a fanless, very sterile environment NBA thing. I don't know if I could do it.
They were pumping a little bit of, some music and stuff into it try to liven up the gym a little bit. That's why I really sampled it, just to see what did it look like without fans there, and the benches kind of underneath, almost an overhang a little bit is where they had the benches up a little bit. And they only played 10-minute quarters. I don't know if they're going to do this I think each team gets 3 exhibition games before they get going. I believe it's the 31st is when they tip it off for their final 8 games of the regular season. And that's only the teams that are there. Only 22 of the teams. Not every team is down there. Only 22 are down there still playing for the next couple of weeks. So I did sample that. And if you want to, NBA TV's got it on tonight if you want to go look at some of that. Baseball does start tomorrow. 2 games for real tomorrow. And then everybody goes on Friday. So we're not far away from that happening at all. I want to first start, we always like to talk Huskers right off the bat. And Tim, the social media group over at the stadium has been busy the last couple of days. We mentioned it earlier in the week that this week was the first time the basketball coaches could get out on the court with some of their guys. They've been putting up some pictures of some of the new players, and I'm looking at those kind of going, who's that? Who's this? Who's that? And somebody was good enough to kind of go, okay, dribbling over in this picture was this guy. This guy's Lat Mayen. This guy is Teddy Allen. I'm like, oh, good, thank you. I don't know what these guys look like. Yeah, so a lot of new faces.
It's a veritable who's who, as in, who is that, and do I know him? There's a lot. I mean, you go through the roster, there's I think it's like a 7 to 8 ratio of pictures versus no pictures. And I guess we're going to have to get used to that. I mean, I think I just assumed after season 1, it's like, I assume we're going to get a few more transfers in, but no, this kind of roster turnover is really just becoming normal, not just at Nebraska, but basically across all of college basketball. So as fans, you're going to have to adjust. And really, I mean, Kentucky's been doing that for a decade plus. So it's really not a new thing. And, as long as they perform, I don't think Nebraska fans are going to care too much.
There are 3 guys that aren't there. Thor, who I would have recognized him if he'd have been there. Mm-hmm. Ivan, both those guys, and I think they've been now cleared to fly back. So apparently they're coming back to Lincoln this weekend. So they're going to be joining their new teammates here in a couple of days. And Shamil Stevenson also not here yet. He's still quarantining with his family, but expected to get in Lincoln before too long. But it was great to see some pictures. The coaches were wearing masks. To see Doc Sadler in a mask, pretty good look. Pretty good look for Doc.
He already looks good. I think the mask has just taken it to the next level. I think he tweeted something to the effect of, I like defense and people who wear masks. And I like Coach Sadler, so all those things, they're good for me.
Oh, that was great. So if you were on social media at all today, you probably saw some of those pictures up. You saw Fred Hoiberg with a mask in the background of a couple of the shots. And the football team was busy today. They were getting their pictures in their uniforms today. So a lot of people were like, oh, so Marcus Fleming's going to wear this number and Nico Cooper's going to wear this. So they were matching up some of the new players on the roster with what number they're going to have for the football team. So they were sending that out. So there's some activity going on at some of the athletic facilities on campus right now.
Yeah, and the biggest thing too, Greg, is and this is a few days old, so I'm not revealing any new information here, but seeing the physical transformation of some of these guys, seeing that video of Ty Robinson just getting after it. I mean, I don't think I've seen a man that large since I watched The Mountain in Game of Thrones. I mean, I don't know what Zach Duvall is doing, what kind of mad scientist stuff is going on there, but it's seriously impressive. And also stuff, the hype videos, the Nebraska football social media, and really just all across Husker world have really stepped it up. I mean, you're looking at what these videos, these hype videos, they're kind of like mini music videos that they're making. Mm-hmm. That's got to be a huge recruiting incentive. I mean, if you're 18, 17, scrolling through Twitter and you see what Nebraska's pumping out there from a social media perspective, that's got to be a huge selling point for a lot of these guys. I mean, that's just really cool to see. Zach Duvall's killing it. The football team's killing it right now. Very cool stuff.
The Ty Robinson video was jaw-dropping. It really was.
Oh, yeah.
Then you go back to last week, and Nash Hutmacher, a.k.a. the polar bear, he's squatting unbelievable amounts. In fact, Zach Duvall said, we had to go find a different bar to hold all the weight that this true freshman is squatting right now. So, I mean,
I teared up looking at that. Yeah, I mean, that, as someone who is a very amateur, shall we say, weightlifter, I was in pain even watching that video. And to see, I mean, the nutrition at Nebraska and strength and conditioning has always been massive. And now that Nebraska is, they're ahead of the curve in a lot of this stuff. And, Zach Duvall having a chance to, in fact, he was on Sports Nightly a little while ago, a few months ago, and hearing him explain that process, it really, and that's really where development and winning games starts, is in the weight room. And you taking these guys who were already big to begin with. I mean, the Nash Hutmacher was a big man to begin with. You get him squatting that weight, and Ty Robinson, same thing. It'd be huge guy, physical talent, and you're basically just transforming them, building even more mass on them. So it's almost scary in a way, but in a good scary. It's kind of incredible to watch.
Yeah, it's fun stuff, and I know the fans get a kick out of that. And you're right, the social media, tip your cap to them. They're doing a nice job of kind of stoking the fire a little bit for everybody as we get a little bit closer. Well, another day, and we're still trying to track what could possibly happen for college football. Dennis Dodd, who we've had on this program a number of times from CBS Sports, has a piece up that he put up a couple of hours ago talking about the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12 are considering a +1 scheduling model. So what that means is they would play their conference games and then protect one non-conference matchup. And in a lot of cases, it's going to be matchups within those three leagues that are already on the schedule. This makes some sense to me, Tim, and Josh and I touched on this a little bit last night on the program. There's an awful lot of SEC schools who some of their biggest rivalries are in the ACC conference. Florida State maybe is the biggest example of that. Absolutely, I think the fan bases would love to have that game still take place if possible.
Right, that makes a lot of sense from that perspective too, because I think that when I read the headline, I was like, oh, does this mean Nebraska just throwing Notre Dame on their schedule? And but no, I mean, if you're looking at interstate rivalries, stuff that like Florida State, there's also Iowa State. I don't know if that gets resurrected under this type of deal, maybe not. But there's a lot of kind of logistical questions to it, not from the teams playing necessarily, but there's also the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have talked about adding just another conference game, so bringing it from 9 conference games to 10 conference games. Well, does the Big 12 do that? Because they already play everyone in their schedule. So it just seems like, depending on the circumstances, like a Florida State game, that makes sense. I hope they can get that done. Iowa State would make a ton of sense. It probably wouldn't make sense for everyone. Like, who would Nebraska add if they were to add a conference thing? There's also something about the contracts as well, because if you've ripped up a contract with one school and then you say, okay, now we're going to add this game, even if it makes logistical sense and them being in the same state, there's going to be a lot of bitterness, I think, from those schools who said, hey, what the heck? You said you're not playing non-con games. So to me, it makes sense and doesn't make sense. It's probably best handled at each situation, kind of at a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the ship has sailed for Big Ten. I think the Big Ten sticking with conference only. We're not going to step outside the league. But to those conferences, Florida State's maybe the biggest example. How about Kentucky-Louisville? There's another big one in that state that they love to play each other every year. South Carolina-Clemson, both in that state of South Carolina, love to play each year. So I think that's probably the direction those leagues are looking at, maybe paring down the schedule. Remember, the SEC only plays and the ACC only play 8 league games as it is. That's one of the big beefs I have. Big 12 plays 9. Big 10 plays 9. Pac-12 plays 9. I think we're going to add even one more and go to 10. The stinking SEC and ACC only play 8. So they get 4 non-conference games. And usually one of them is a pretty good game like a Florida or a Florida State. But it'll be interesting to see if that happens. Nothing today from the Big 10. When they came out, Tim, I think it was a Friday, with the announcement of saying we're only going to play conference games, they said a week to 10 days we would announce the new schedule. Well, we're past that now. We're like at 12 or 13 days since they did that. So I don't know whether they're stalling, if they're waiting for something else to happen. One other piece of nugget that I dug up today, Rick Neuheisel, the former Colorado coach, former UCLA coach, Washington coach, maybe I'm missing one of his stops. He now does a talk show. He's like us. He's on satellite radio. He was on a show earlier today and said Pac-12 schools are being told, be ready, September 26th is when we're going to kick off our schedule. So they look like that league's going to push it back 3 weeks. Maybe the Big Ten does the same thing, pushes their schedule back 3 or 4 weeks. We're all kind of guessing at this point in time.
Right, which I think was the intent behind the Big Ten going to non-con, or rather conference only. And, of course, Nebraska was set to start the season against Purdue on September the 5th, so we don't really know at this point whether or not that's still going to happen. They might just punt. But you're right, it's frustrating a little bit because at a certain point, we're already in late July here. You're going to have to make a decision. It's not going to be an easy call either way you slice it, but to kind of wait, because this thing changes. Sometimes you hear good news, some days you hear bad news, and to kind of just keep waiting, it just starts to drag this process out. I would rather they come out, make a decision, and then you can plan eventualities after that. So if you say, okay, we're going to play, maybe we hold off until late September, maybe we hold off until October, but then to start putting those plans or contingencies in place rather than just say, we're going to wait. We're just going to kind of wait and see, and you just kind of are in this kind of limbo state. I just want someone somewhere, whether that's the NCAA, the SEC, someone should take a lead on this and just kind of put their foot down and say, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it.
Well, you had the Big Ten and the Pac-12 2 weeks ago come out and say conference only. The other 3 big Power Fives weren't real happy with that. They're like, wait, what are you doing this so early for? We have a couple more weeks to kind of figure this out a little bit. So they weren't real happy. Now you kind of get the feeling everybody's waiting, all right, who's going to be the first one to say this is the start date? And I think they're all kind of going, okay, is the Big Ten going to put their foot in that water first? Who's going to dip their toe in there first? My guess is it may be the Big Ten. The Big Ten took the lead on the whole thing with the scheduling. They may be the first ones to cross the bridge and go into that. We'll certainly continue to monitor it here every night. We're certainly vested in this and interested in what's going to happen with this whole thing. All right, here's what we have coming up this hour. Another edition of the Husker Huddle with Jeremiah Searles. Real treat for you tonight. Quincy Enunwa, who's had a tremendous career with the New York Jets. He's battled a lot of injuries the last couple of years, signed a big contract a year ago, got hurt. He's down right now. We'll get the latest on Quincy from Jeremiah coming up in a little bit. That's been so much fun, Tim, to hear Jeremiah sit down and talk to some of the guys he played with, some guys that he hasn't played with. But, I mean, when you get a football guy who knows what it's like in those locker rooms, I think you get a little something out of it. It's been fun to hear Jeremiah do those.
Oh, yeah. And even, watching Jeremiah squeeze into, you're normally where you sit in that power chair there is also a fun sight to see as well. But getting to everyone's perspectives and listening to 2 guys, it's almost like, it's why you call it the Husker Huddle. It's basically like you're in the huddle with them. And to get that perspective, it's really fascinating. So
that's coming up here in a couple of minutes. We'll have some open phones for you later on. Also some baseball topics we can get into this hour as well, as we are on the eve of the start of the Major League Baseball season. 2 games again tomorrow. The rest of the league gets going on Friday. Here are the numbers. If you want to be a part of this one, 866-HUSKER-1, 866-487-5371. Back with our Husker Huddle next.
Welcome back to another episode of Husker Huddle presented by Sapp Brothers, who say, welcome, be our guest. Today we're lucky enough to be joined by current New York Jet member, former Nebraska Cornhusker wide receiver Quincy Enunwa. Quincy, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Trying to beat the heat down here in Lincoln and keep our heads above water as things seem to be closing back up again. But we want to appreciate you taking the time to catch up and kind of just see what you've been up to lately.
Yeah. Anytime, man. I'm looking forward to the convo.
Awesome. Well, I mean, first of all, what have you been up to? I mean, everyone I've talked to so far this year has a kind of different story. As once things started shutting down in March, I mean, as NFL players, that's usually the time you start kind of ramping your training up, getting back ready to go for OTAs. How have you handled the pandemic, and where have you kind of been stationed at?
Yeah. So for me, I've been stationed in the same spot, and unfortunately, it's been New Jersey. So. We got hit the hardest. So it was really kind of just me being stuck out here, figuring out how I was going to do my workouts, do my rehab, because this coming season I won't be playing again, another injury. So for me, it's just about just trying to take care of myself the best way possible.
So I know last year you signed a nice deal there, and then you get injured week 1 against the Bills, and that's got to be tough. But, how have you been handling that mentally, physically? How are you feeling? Do you feel like you're getting back, or is this something you're just going to really take slow and make sure that you get that neck right?
Yeah, so honestly, I feel good. You know, I feel good physically. The only problem I have is just that anytime I take an MRI, the image isn't exactly what they want it to be. So, I'm just taking it slow. With this year, with another year off, it'll give me another opportunity to just kind of get back to where I need to be at. So, mentally it was tough. When you suffer 2 season-ending injuries, it's always tough on you. We spend our whole lives trying to get to this point, right? And so when it ends when the season ends and it's not the way you want it to end, it's always tough to kind of battle through that. And anybody that's been on IR kind of knows it can be a pretty isolating place,
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was put on IR twice, and it's a lonely feeling almost, because you feel like this sense of you're not only letting yourself down, you're letting your team down. And so, I mean, I know you personally, I'm sure you've been handling it well, but I mean, what are some things that you've done, maybe hobbies that you've picked up, or maybe something that you've kind of done to keep yourself busy? I know Luke Kuechly, when I was in Carolina, he actually, when he went on IR for his concussions, he watched YouTube and taught himself magic tricks. So I was just curious, maybe is there anything you've picked up along the way to keep the mind occupied?
Yeah, no magic tricks. I've been doing a lot of reading. I've read so many books now. I feel like I wish I would have done it before. You go through school and everybody tells you, read. And I was so focused on football. I felt as though there was no time to pick up a book and really gain that knowledge. And now I've gotten so much knowledge from the books I've been reading. It's been so helpful, especially during this time. And that's been the biggest thing for me. Other than that, just trying to work on things outside of football. Make sure that I'm ready for post football, and if that comes sooner than later.
Yeah, man, I think that's a great plan, and it does seem to happen when you least expect it. I can speak from that for experience. So it's nice to find a spot here at the Husker Sports Network, and let's talk a little Husker football here. Before, I want to get your thoughts on all the NFLPA and NFL and talking about COVID. But before we get to that, I'd love to talk a little bit Husker football, man. J.D. Spielman leaves here, who probably would have broke every record as a wide receiver here, which leaves kind of a void here. Going into year 3 systems here for Scott Frost, what are you looking at from this wide receiver room that's really young, unproven, but has a lot of potential coming into it?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, man. You look at a guy that has that much talent. In the few games that I watched, he was making plays all the time. So it'll be tough. And I think that when you look at a guy like Scott Frost, he's a likable guy, and I think that helps him in recruiting, and it'll help him with the players he has right now. I'm hoping those guys can step up. That's our best bet right now. When you lose a talent like that, you always have to do the next man up. And I think that's something that we preach in football, and I'm hoping that's what we're preaching there as well.
I think that's going to be a big piece for this Huskers offense. I mean, young quarterback coming back who's now really a leader on this team. You got a solid offensive line. Seems the one question mark is at wide receiver, which when I was here, I was lucky enough. I was looking back at some of our players that we had when we were playing together. Q, it was you, it was Kenny, Jamal Turner, we had Brandon Kenny. We had such a stacked wide receiver room. It's weird to see a Nebraska team that doesn't just have, guys on deck at that position.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been a little bit of a drop off, since we just had Stanley, so we've had a few guys, and I think that I think guys will show up, and when you have an offense that is capable of putting points on the board, somebody's going to want to put those points on the board, So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
Absolutely, me too. But let's get into what is really going on in the topic. And one thing I was really excited that you were on the slate to talk to this week is all we've seen through social media, whether Instagram is Twitter, is NFL players taking their voice and taking it to the platform. I know you're a player rep up there for the New York Jets. And let's talk a little bit about what is going on with players wanting to play, but the NFL and the NFLPA needing to come to an agreement. I think they're coming close to one, but maybe you could give us a little more insight on what that's going to be moving forward here.
Yeah, so, it's a tough position to be in right now. So much uncertainty, so much we don't know. I think that both sides, NFL and NFLPA, are doing our best to kind of come to an agreement that is the safest for everybody, not only the players but their families. As far as I know, we've come to a pretty strong agreement, and we have a phone call actually later today, just to kind of disperse that information and allow us as reps to kind of know exactly where we're at. So I think that it's looking pretty positive.
What is realistic? Not talking, take your PA rep off and just a player's hat on right now. Like, what do you think is realistic for this season? Do you think it'll be season as normal, or do you think we'll see some cancellations? Or I'm very interested to see how the flow of the 2020 NFL season might look like.
Yeah, as a player, right? I don't know. You want to be as optimistic as possible, especially, if I was playing this year, I would definitely want to be as optimistic as possible. You never want to see a season be canceled. I think we all have put in so much work to get to this point right now. And so for that to have been canceled from a virus, that's devastating. I would like to think that the NFL would take care of us as best as possible. And I think it's really going to be about watching what happens with this bubble in the NBA, watching what happens in the NHL. Those would be great examples of like what might happen for us.
Yeah, I think that one thing that you and I were talking about a little bit before the show here was how the NFL is really going to have such a trickle-down effect, because you're seeing it right now, certain college conferences even saying, hey, we're pushing football to the spring, or we're going to have to cancel completely. I really, truly believe that the Power 5 conferences want to play in the fall. I think that they're waiting to see, okay, can the NFL handle it all and then trickle down? What are your thoughts on college football this year? Because it's one thing for the NFL, right? You can pay guys. You can say, hey, if you don't stay in this bubble, you don't stay quarantined, whatever, like you don't get a paycheck. Okay, people are going to do that. Now, you talk college is a whole different animal. You got class. You've got people that you're interacting with nonstop. Do you think that there's a more likelihood of an NFL season or a college season, or do you think they're kind of linked together?
Yeah, I think they're pretty linked. I think the biggest thing though that you look at with college is there's no cut downs, right? So you have about 100 guys, and they're there all year. So that's a lot of different people to watch, different people to make sure that they're not doing things that might bring the virus into that bubble. So it's pretty unpredictable, and so I want to say that they're linked, but I think that if we're being smart in this situation, they might want to take more caution than the NFL.
Yeah, what do you think about football in the spring for NFL or college? Personally, my thought on it here is if there's no football in the fall of 2020, there should not be football again until the fall of 2021. I don't know what your thoughts on it. That's just kind of where I've kind of laid my line in the sand with the thoughts on it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that there's really any necessity for that. In general, now that I've been in the NFL, I don't really see a need for spring football. But if they want to do spring football, I think that they should just cancel this next one if we don't have a fall season.
Yeah, because I think it then becomes a safety issue, because then you start talking about, okay, if you have even a spring/winter season, you're talking, February through June, and then guys, because the NFL plows ahead, guys that want to go to the NFL, finish in June, drafted in June, and then start again in September. It seems like it's just an interesting premise, and I'll be curious to see how it folds out there. But Quincy, what are some things you're looking forward to? I know you wish you were going to be on the field this year, but now that you're off the field, how you're going to maybe try and be a leader, or some different ways you might try and implement yourself in that Jets locker room this year? I knew you were a team captain. I know you are a team captain. How are some things you're going to implement this year different now that you're not on the field for the 2020 season?
So this being my second year in a row, now being off, I think that last year it was tough. I had to kind of adjust. Especially getting a new contract, it was like, all right, I'm gonna show everybody I deserve this thing. I've done exactly what I need to do. So when that first injury happened, I kind of fell to the back and stayed away from the team. I think this year coming up, I definitely want to be more involved, be a voice, make sure that I'm passing on any knowledge that I have to guys, young guys. We drafted a receiver, and just trying to be as helpful as possible. Especially right now, where there's so much uncertainty, so many things that people are going to have to get used to on the fly, right? So have any off season, didn't get a chance to really learn the playbook while running routes with the coaches on the field. So you're going to have to learn fast. And so I think for me, just having that experience that I've had being in the league for 6 going on 7 years, I want to at least be able to pass it on to guys so that, they can get up to speed as fast as possible.
Quincy, I just want to say thank you again for joining us here on Husker Huddle, presented by Sapp Brothers. Sapp Brothers' top priority is to keep guests and teammates safe. Sapp Brothers offering full service at the pump as our nation relies now more than ever on drivers and farmers to provide essentials to our communities. Sapp Brothers is committed to serving you. Quincy, as we let you go here, man, anything else you want to say to Husker Nation? We're excited we got a chance to get caught back up with you. We're excited to hopefully see you again on the football field in 2021. Any last remarks here before we let you go?
I'm just keep it simple, man. Go Big Red.
Husker 1-866-487-5371, the number if you want to join us here on the program. Greg Sharp, Tim Curran with you here on a Wednesday night as we motor our way through the month of July. Mention that there's some Husker baseball news. Mike Matchia from Husker Online has a terrific piece that he posted today. He interviewed Husker assistant coach Lance Harvell, who talked about some roster changes that Nebraska has had. I'm just going to kind of run through some of these. Aaron Dolney, who was a freshman catcher, has decided to transfer to a junior college. Drew Mackey, a freshman outfielder, also going to go the junior college route. Drew Gillen from up in Millard is going to transfer. Not sure if he's going to end up at JUCO or a four-year school, but he is leaving the program. Micah Dante got hurt in the Arizona State series, the last road series the Huskers played. He dove for a ball in the outfield and messed up his shoulder. He's decided to just kind of retire, finish up his academics. He had 1 year left in Nebraska, going to do that, kind of retire from baseball. The same thing with Carter Cross. He's kind of giving up baseball. And Kyle Wish, who was a freshman pitcher on this year's team, has decided to transfer to a junior college as well. Even with all those departures, Nebraska still has 42 players on the roster. You've been hearing us talk about Will Bolt signing this guy and that guy, and this guy transferred to Nebraska, and you kind of go, wait a minute, this roster's getting a little large. It is. It's at 42. Tim, they can, the old rules, and they may give them a leeway this year because of COVID. They may let them carry a little bit bigger roster sizes next year. Is normally 35, so they're at 42 now. So a lot of changes for Will Bolt in that baseball program, but I think Husker baseball fans have to be ecstatic. Will Bolt is doing some great things with that program, and I think he's added a lot of talent, but you're going to need a program day one of that season because there are going to be a lot of changes.
Well, with the changes to the scholarship allowances, too, these rosters are really going to balloon, and Nebraska seems to be taking full advantage of that, at least at the moment. But you're right. I mean, having conversations with Will Bolt, he talks all the time about that 500-mile recruiting radius, and he's also got a foot in Texas. And so he's got so many areas to where he can kind of reach and dig for guys. And now that you have kind of these restrictions, unfortunately, it did, like you were talking about, Greg, a lot of this did negatively impact guys. Obviously, besides having just their season cut short, a lot of them just said, you know what, that was probably my last ride, probably time to step down. At the same time, you just have more opportunity for, as a coaching staff, to just bring in more bodies and then kind of use that to your advantage. So I'm really curious to see how it's going to play out. I really have no idea what kind of knock-on effect it's going to have, not just in 2021, but 2022 and kind of so on, because it's we just don't know yet.
Yeah, and the other thing is the young men who were leaving weren't big contributors to the program, and so your hope is the players that they're bringing in are better. So you've upgraded your talent. Time will be the ultimate judge of that. Time is something, Tim, that the Toronto Blue Jays don't have much of. The country of Canada has said, nope, we're not going to let you have players flying into our country and playing baseball the next day. They would need to quarantine like every other visitor to our country. So the Blue Jays are trying to find a different home. They thought they had a deal with Pittsburgh with PNC Park, but the state of Philadelphia goes, nope, we're not signing off on that. Now they're in scramble mode. They're like a week away from having a home game, and they don't have a place to play. How bizarre is this?
Well, build it, and the Blue Jays will come because they need a place to play. I mean, hey, TD Ameritrade, Haymarket Park, the Salt Dogs aren't using it right now. So I know they talked a lot about, or at least it's been thrown around, I don't know if this is just pure speculation or what, but playing at Buffalo, the AAA affiliate, that might not be right for television cameras, so who knows if they can set up there. But you would assume that, you know, if we were talking earlier about college football teams making like impromptu schedules, you would assume that this would be fairly straightforward. If they can just approach a park and say, hey, can we play here? I'm not really sure why Pittsburgh had to turn them down. I don't really know why they were thinking Pittsburgh in the first place. I guess it's somewhat of a northern city, so if they want to play somewhere in the region. But this is just a weird deal. I would imagine that, you know, there'd be plenty of cities trying to say, hey, Blue Jays, come play here. And then that's another fan base tool. When Kansas City, for instance, they played in Omaha. They had that one game last year, I believe it was, as kind of a, you know, a thank you, I guess, to a lot of the Omaha fans. And so this could be a huge opportunity for the Blue Jays to kind of expand their footprint well out of Canada and play somewhere where they can kind of build onto that fan base. Obviously, not fans going to the game, but just having the coolness of having a local team or an MLB team in your area. I don't really know how this is going to work out. It's kind of like the Raiders deal where they don't really know what stadium they're going to play and all that stuff. Just kind of teams flying by the seat of their pants. So, but yeah, we should float out. We would just at least send an email out, say, hey, Haymarket Park's right here, TD Ameritrade Park. No one's using it. Why not?
You know, there was talk they were going to go to Buffalo. That's their AAA affiliate is Buffalo. But the Players Association goes, no, the Blue Jays need to play all their games in a major league quality stadium with all the major league amenities, and they don't believe that the Buffalo ballpark fits that. I think TD would. Haymarket wouldn't, but TD would. The problem would be is that because of the way they did the schedule for Major League Baseball, all their games are going to be on the East Coast. So to have everybody fly to Omaha is a little out of the way, although it's convenient, right? I mean, the airport's a mile from the ballpark. There's good hotels right there as well. I mean, teams would hardly even have to kind of move, and once they landed their plane to play the game and go to their hotel. So from that, but having the Yankees come here, the Red Sox come here, the Orioles come here, the Rays come here, I don't. But hey, they may get stuck. They may go, we have no other options. Maybe Omaha is still on their plate.
Right, and they were talking too when all this started with that. Originally, everyone was just going to play in like the Southeast or Southwest and kind of do a weird spring training type schedule. So really, the kind of it's the Wild Wild West right now. I mean, they could play on the moon for all we know at this point. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a crazy idea. I mean, yes, the travel is a bit much. Certainly flying out to the East Coast every other day would be not on my top 10 list of things to do.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you don't have anywhere else to play, and if you need a Major League Baseball, I mean, TD Ameritrade would have to fit that. I mean, it's a fantastic venue. It's very recent. And so if you have nowhere else, I mean, is Fenway going to let you show up, or Yankee Stadium, or the Citi Field? I mean, I don't know. So if all those places say no, or they can't get it done, TD Ameritrade Park wouldn't be a bad bet.
It's kind of been a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke about moving them to Omaha, but they may be running quickly out of options, and it may all of a sudden go, well, okay, maybe we go do that. We'll track that. But their home game, I think, is next Wednesday is their first scheduled home game. So they got a week, but that's not much time to figure out that's where you're going to make your home base. Also, I just read this before we went on the air tonight. Season starts tomorrow. They're all of a sudden, 11th hour, having more conversations about expanding the playoffs for this fall. And if they do that, they have to do it before first pitch tomorrow night with the Nationals and the Yankees. So they're quickly trying to go, well, maybe we ought to add a couple of more wild card teams to the playoffs to extend the playoffs a little bit since it's such a short season. Seems crazy to me. I don't care if they want to add a couple more. That's fine. But to do it this late in the game seems odd to me.
Yeah, it's funny that this is probably more of a trial run than anything else because, it doesn't matter what professional organization you're looking at. They're always looking to expand the playoffs, obviously for more revenue. Now, this year would actually make sense given that you only have, 60 games. You don't have 162 or whatever it was. So I could see it under the circumstances, but, can't people figure this stuff out before they're burning the midnight oil trying to come up with a playoff format when guys are going to, pitch first pitch here in moments. It just doesn't make much sense to do it kind of like this. So there really isn't, a lot of good options you have, and there's always going to be that asterisk anyway, given just the abbreviated nature of the season and no fans. So there's no good solutions here, but it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world.
Yeah. You have some thoughts about that? 866-HUSKER-1, 866-487-5371. The number if you want to dial us up with a comment or a question. Big day for Mookie Betts. Signs one of the biggest deals in Major League Baseball history, a long-term extension with the Dodgers, who traded for him in the offseason. He was in the last year of his deal. A lot of people didn't think he maybe would re-sign with the Dodgers. He has before he's even played an official game with them. Big-time money for this guy. I can't remember who had Mookie Betts. Maybe Josh or Tim, maybe you'll remember, in SNBL. Which one of our French? Oh, he was on.
I was big on Mookie, and he did not perform
really
to my expectations at all. No, and
you had the league MVP.
Well, I had some talent. They very rarely clicked all together. Now, they might have made a magical run at the end of the season, but when I kind of was tuning out, my guys were getting shelled. Uncommon scores would be 16-3, and the guys just getting lit up. My bullpen, Chris Sale, he was kind of a disaster. It just wasn't. It didn't all work out for the Hong Kong Cthulhus.
He signs a $365 million deal with the Dodgers today. It's the second biggest contract in baseball history behind Mike Trout. Is he that good? Woo. I think he's really good. Is he that good?
When you're thinking of Mookie Betts, you think of because he can do it both. He's got such speed in the outfield, and he also is a solid bat. But is he Mike Trout level? I don't know. And you also on the Dodgers, you're also talking about guys like Jock Peterson that he's playing along with, and is he worth that much more than Bellinger or Jock Peterson or Kershaw? I don't know if you can make that yet. Good for the Dodgers for wrapping him up. He's a valuable player, but when you're talking that kind of money, I just don't know. I don't know.
12-year deal. The thing with that is he's still a fairly young guy. 12 years. He'll be an older player in baseball, obviously, by then. But, when the Pujols deal, and I'm sorry I'm going to pick a scab on you because he was a Cardinal, that deal didn't make a lot of sense because he was already 30 or 31 when he signed that long-term deal. I think Betts, help me, guys. Josh, you may have to look this up for me. But I think Betts is 28, 27, something like right now. So, 27, so 12 years gets him out to 39. Pujols has went past 40.
Oh yeah, Pujols was washed. When that deal happened, Pujols had led the Cardinals to the mountaintop and then said, time to ride off in the sunset. So that's not this type of thing. Mookie Betts has his best baseball ahead of him. 27, that's right in the wheelhouse. That's right in the prime of his career. But yeah, it's still a long contract. And baseball, of course, about the salary cap. I think we had that discussion either last week or earlier this week on baseball, maybe getting rid of that. I think Alex Rodriguez floated that idea out there. Well, if I'm Mookie Betts, I'm not a fan of that idea at all. You got a 12-year contract. That's job stability. And the fact that he hasn't even played a game yet for the Dodgers, kind of incredible. His agent deserves a bravo. That's a heck of a deal to get.
You're right, though. Just hitting the prime of his playing days. He probably has 5 or 6 years of prime. That means the back half of the contract, which is probably pretty heavy loaded, is when he's going to dip off a little bit. But big news there. Good for Mookie Betts. That's great. And he beats the Alex Rodriguez cap, as you mentioned. So he's set. He's set.
Yeah.
He'll be just fine with that. All right. Thanks again to Jeremiah Searles for sitting down at Quincy and Newman. Really enjoy listening to those each and every week. I believe next week it's going to be Tommy Armstrong sitting down with Jeremiah to talk in next week's Husker Huddle. Callers and guests into our show. Dial us up on our Sports Only hotline. Brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto Family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. What an hour, what a day. Major League Baseball exhibitions going on. You got NBA exhibition started today. The sports world is coming alive again. And for you NASCAR fans, maybe some of you are heading to Kansas City. They're running at Kansas City tomorrow night. NASCAR is under the lights down at the Kansas Speedway. So NASCAR comes close to our neck of the woods for their next event in 24 hours. Again, thanks to Jeremiah. Good hour here on Sports Nightly.
Good evening, I'm Josh Hilkeman. This update's brought to you by Cornerstone Bank. While times seem uncertain, Cornerstone Bank is here for you and your financial needs, just like they have been for the last 138 years. When times are difficult, there's no place like Nebraska. Bank on a solid foundation. Cornerstone Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Major League Baseball is on the eve of opening night. The first 2 regular season games of 2020 scheduled for tomorrow evening. And news out of the MLB today as Mookie Betts and the Los Angeles Dodgers have agreed to a 12-year, $365 million extension. The former Red Sox MVP was said to be a free agent in the offseason, but the extension will keep Betts in L.A. through his age 40 season. And some Major League Baseball scores, a final from earlier today. The Cardinals doubled up the Royals 6-3. The Pirates and Indians are playing in Pittsburgh with Cleveland up 5-3 in the bottom of the 9th inning. The Cubs have a 3-0 advantage on the Twins in the bottom of the 3rd, and the Blue Jays and Red Sox no score in the top of the 3rd inning. First pitch in just a few minutes between the Rangers and the Rockies. Also coming up in just a few minutes, the Brewers are in Chicago playing the White Sox. Live inside the Husker Sports Network studios, I'm Josh Hilkeman.
Your state, your team, your show. This is Sports Nightly.
The triangle set to the top of the pattern. Now Spielman in motion to the near side. Rolling right is McCaffrey. Throws it toward the end zone. Wide open is Noah. Makes a catch. And it is a touchdown, Nebraska.
Now let's check the pulse of Husker Nation with your hosts, Greg Sharp and Tim Curran.
We're back for hour number 2 of Sports Nightly here on a Wednesday night. We're delighted that you've chosen to spend some of your time with us here tonight. You picked a good hour to jump on board here. Lane Grendel's going to stop by, our Major League Baseball insider. He's going to come on by and give us the breakdown on the eve of the start of a 60-game Major League Baseball season. We'll get the latest from Lane, talk about some of these new rules that Major League Baseball has instituted. Some of them kind of make you cock your head a little bit. We'll get Lane's interpretation of all that coming up here in a little bit. We'll also continue our preseason top 25 countdown. We began the countdown last night, and or 2 nights ago, actually. We started with USC was our team number 25, and Central Florida, UCF, was our team number 24. Tonight, get into team number 23.
It's the Sports Nightly preseason top 25. Tonight.
First to goal from the 2. Purdy pumps, looks, wide open man, Kohler, touchdown Iowa State. Charlie Kohler with another touchdown reception, his 7th in the last 7 games. How about that?
Number 23, the Iowa State Cyclones.
And here's fill in all the blanks for us on Iowa State's Randy Peterson from the Des Moines Register. Randy, I hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying healthy and safe during all these crazy times.
I'm doing as well as can be expected. How about yourself?
Hanging in there. Just kind of curious when we're going to get some answers on this hopefully upcoming college football season. Let me start there, Randy. What kind of did they eye roll in Ames when the Big Ten came out and said no non-conference game, thus stopping the Cy-Hawk game for a year? What was the reaction in Ames to the Big Ten's decision?
The eyes not only rolled in Ames, they rolled in Dallas. I talked to Bowlesby, the Big 12 commissioner. I mean, within I don't know, sometime within 3 hours or so of the Big Ten's decision. And Bowlesby and I talked quite a bit because he's also an Iowan, and so we knew each other long before he was who he is now. But yeah, and that the Big Ten's decision took everybody by surprise because they had a meeting among the Power 5 commissioners on the a Zoom meeting that the day that it happened. I believe it was on a Friday, maybe a Thursday. And Bowlesby came away from that meeting that there'd be no bombshells. Nobody would announce anything crazy or anything like that. And then a few hours later, here comes the Big Ten decision. So I called Bowlesby right away, and I said, "What the heck?" Or something like that. And he was blindsided. So yeah, that surprised everybody. But yeah, no Cyhawk game. That's wow. That's I don't know whether people have quite grasped it yet here in our state, because our fans are trying to figure out a way to play it, and I keep telling them it ain't happening. So I guess for a season, I hope it's just a season, that everybody can put their week-long hostility against each other, pack it away, and put that hostility into something more beneficial, like trying to figure out how to get rid of the COVID. But yeah, it hit everybody pretty hard. I mean, it's going to hit. The game's supposed to be in Iowa City this year, and it's going to hit that community really hard because the hotels probably were getting sold out, and that's at least a 2-night minimum. Bars were going to be packed. As you know, there's more people in the parking lots tailgating before that game than what's actually in the stadium. So I mean, it's just a rite of the fall for Iowa State to play football against each other, and it's not happening. So yeah, there's certainly a void. I'll tell you that. I feel bad for the senior.
Yeah, Randy, to your knowledge, is Iowa State trying to replace that game? Have they made any inquiries to other schools to try to replace that game, or are they sitting back to wait and see what happens here?
Well, here's the deal with that. I think they're sitting back and waiting. I think they probably made preliminary call to Northern Iowa, because Northern Iowa lost that game too. That's who Iowa was supposed to open the season with, is against Northern Iowa. I think Iowa State and Northern Iowa, being that the Northern Iowa athletic director, David Harris, used to be at Iowa State, was Jamie Pollard's was a senior associate athletic director at Iowa State. I think that they've probably talked. But I don't know if I doubt that it's extended beyond that, because how do we know that we don't even know the Big 12's going to allow its teams to play non-conference games, or at least non-conference games outside of the Power 5 structure. So I don't know. I understand we're supposed to find out something on Friday when the NCAA Board of Governors meet, but I don't think what we're going to find out Friday is going to pertain to Power 5 schools like Iowa State, Nebraska, the Big 10 and the Big 12 and the Power 5 conferences. I think because those conferences are essentially leaderless anyway, because the NCAA doesn't govern them. So I'm guessing that the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC get go another week and a half, 2 weeks before deciding on what they're going to do. But bottom line is, I'm guessing they go, if they choose to play football, I'm guessing they go conference games only as well.
Randy Peterson's with us from the Des Moines Register. We've got Iowa State at number 23 in our preseason top 25. Let's dive into the Cyclones. It starts with Brock Purdy. How impressive a quarterback is this guy in person, Randy?
He's really impressive, and he looks more impressive now than he did last year, just as physically. I've not seen him. Well, actually, I did see him in person. I live in Des Moines, and I was in Ames, I don't know, about a week ago. I just needed to get my Iowa State campus fixed, so I just drove up and drove around, and I saw him walking in one of the parking lots, and we waved at each other from afar, but he's bulked up. He looks very good from a physical standpoint. If this kid can stay healthy, I'll tell you what, he's going to end up. He'll be a junior. He's going to end up as Iowa State's all-time quarterback leader in every statistical category. He's that good.
There have been some good ones down through the years at Iowa State. How about the offensive line? As I look at it, just one starter back. Is that one of the questions that this team's going to have to answer?
It's one of two questions that this team's got to answer. I'm putting it at number 2. Number 1, I think that there needs to be they need to find a backup quarterback, because whoever the backup quarterback's going to be has not taken a college snap. So that's huge. But Iowa State rotated a number of offensive linemen in and out last year. But yeah, they lost 3 starters. Or actually 4 starters, yeah, but they've got 2 guys back who started a lot of the season, Trevor Downing and Colin Newell. Colin Newell was actually the starting center, and then he got hurt after maybe the 3rd game of the year. He got hurt and missed 6 games in a row, 5 or 6 games in a row. So he came back for the bowl game against Notre Dame, and he was just barely back. I mean, so they essentially have 2 starting linemen back. And Trevor Downing, who will be a junior from Creston, from down in Southwest Iowa. This kid's good, and he may have been Iowa State's best offensive lineman last year anyway. So they played a lot of linemen. They're going to have to plug in 3 guys, and that's going to be tough because Iowa State's never had a great offensive line. They've been adequate. They've been enough to get the job done, to have 1,000-yard rushers, for example, and to have, to block well enough for Brock Purdy. But they'll be all right. It's never a strength of the team, but they've got guys who started. They've got 4 or 5 guys, not who started, but who played a lot. So it's not going to be a deep position, yet it's going to be adequate, passable. I guess that's a word for it.
Yeah, I'm visiting with Randy Peterson, the Des Moines Register. We've got Iowa State number 23 in our preseason top 25. Let's go to defense. A lot of familiar names on that side of the ball. How good can that group be in your eyes?
Could be the best defense Iowa State's had in a long time, and I know people are going to say, well, that's not saying much, but it really is, because Iowa State's defense under Matt Campbell, since Matt Campbell's been the head coach with John Haycock running the defense, he's revamped that whole defense. They've gone to the 3-man front. They were one of the first teams in college football to go to a 3-man front, and they've done it successfully. So schools are now catching up with that. This is a defense that's got very experienced defensive linemen coming back, including defensive end Jaquan Bailey, who entered last season needing just 1 sack to be Iowa State's career sack leader. Well, he got hurt in the 4th game of the year against Baylor and didn't play the rest of the season. He's back. He could have gone. He was a senior last year, but he hadn't redshirted, so he didn't get his 4 games in. So he's back. He could have gone on to try to get into an NFL camp or to rehab and got into an NFL camp, but he decided to come back. So the defensive line is going to be really good. The linebackers have been very good as of late. Not as of late. Iowa State's had good linebackers for the last 7 or 8 years probably, and Mike Rose is the leader there. He's a preseason all-conference guy. The defensive backfield, safety Greg Eisworth, he was a preseason all Big 12 guy. So he's back in the back end with starters coming back around him. So this could be the best defense Iowa State's had, and it's a defense with depth too. So that's going to be the key word this season, if and when we get college football going. That's going to be a key word this season, is depth, because what if a guy comes down with a crud? What if you test for COVID on Wednesday? You're out. You could be out 1 or 2 games, and that could be anybody from your starting quarterback to your 1,000-yard rusher. So it's going to be key that depth, as you know, is going to be the big deal. And on defense, Iowa State's got tremendous depth.
Randy, last year I think we had Iowa State somewhere in the teens in our preseason top 25, and they didn't quite live up to that. So I think that spooked us a little bit. That's why we have them at 23. But listening to you and kind of breaking this down, to me, this looks like a team that could play for a Big 12 title. Am I way off on that, or is this team capable of being one of the last 2 standing?
Well, the Big 12, the Big 12 media picked Iowa State for 4th, which I thought was probably 1 run low. I picked them for 3rd. I picked them for Oklahoma, obviously. number 1, and I had Texas number 2, and then Iowa State 3. Well, apparently the majority of the reporters who voted had Oklahoma 1, Oklahoma State number 2 behind Chuba Hubbard, the running back who gained a gazillion yards last year. Texas number 3 and Iowa State 4. So I guess the other than Oklahoma, numbers 2, 3, and 4 are fairly interchangeable, I would say. So yeah, Iowa State's got a shot to play in the championship game, I would say. One thing that works against Iowa State is that they play at Texas late in the season, and Iowa State doesn't seem to ever win down there. So that could work against Iowa State, but yeah, with a little luck on the health front, I think Iowa State could be among the 2 standing at the end. Certainly they go right into the last maybe 2 weeks of the season with that possibility.
And hopefully we can put a lot of people in the stands for that game in Dallas. They would travel like crazy down there if they were able to get that opportunity. Randy, great to catch up. Good to hear that you're healthy. Let's all keep our fingers crossed. We've got some college football being played here in about 6-7 weeks.
All right. Tell everybody hi over there for me. Thanks for having me. Anytime.
We'll bet. Thank you, Randy. Randy Peterson of the Des Moines Register with us on our Sports Nightly Hotline, brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. All right, Tim Curran, what do you make of these Cyclones?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with a lot of what Randy was saying. I mean, basically, it's in Brock we trust, and even, hey, their running back, Breece Hall, averaged over, I think, 100 yards a pop last season. That's not bad at all. And their defense, as Randy was talking about, has a bunch of depth, especially at D-line. Last year, they weren't great third down defensive-wise, so maybe that holds them up. But they are one of the better teams in the Big 12, but in their schedule, they're going to have to play Oklahoma State and OU back-to-back, and that's going to be the big test. Last year, they almost beat them both, but came up just short. And that's kind of the story with Matt Campbell's teams, is they're always solid, but they can't really get past that 7 to kind of 8 win threshold. To kind of get to that next gear, it's going to take quite a bit. And as Randy was talking about, maybe it's just Brock Purdy is, plays like the greatest of all time, this year and breaks all the records, and they just kind of run the table. I could see that happening just as easily as I could see them stumbling against OU and Oklahoma State and kind of falling off the wagon. So third place is probably about right. Maybe fourth if they underperform, but top 2, I could see it. A little bit harder sell, but hey, I mean, if Brock Purdy does his thing, then maybe.
Great point, because as Randy laid it out, in his eyes, 2 and 3 are probably 2, 3, and 4 are Iowa State, Texas, and Oklahoma State. They play those 2 on the road, so they don't get either one of them at home. So they're going to have to win a big road game, and Matt Campbell's done that. He won in Norman a couple years ago. I think people kind of forget he beat Oklahoma 3 years ago in Norman. In fact, last year only lost to him by a point. He's kind of figured out how to play Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma Sooners, but that they're going to have to win a big road game if they want to get to Dallas to play for the title. We like them. I'm not sure we like them to be in the Big 12 championship game. Thus, we've got them at number 23. Kind of feel like we have them about right, don't you?
Yeah, because I think that, and who knows how rankings are going to work this year with just the conference schedule and less games. And so if you have, 2 or 3 losses, that's obviously different than having 2 or 3 losses with a non-con schedule. So, and also they're not playing Iowa. So maybe that does play to their benefit. They're not playing the Hawkeyes, so they're not going to lose to them for sure. So you could see them having just 2 losses this year, but those 2 losses will be pretty big, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. But who knows? To me, 23, I think that's about right. I wasn't huge on them. I think me and Ben both were kind of hesitant to put them there. But 23, it seems about right, especially given Brock Purdy, their talent on O, and the depth on D.
Yeah, last night we did UCF at 24, and I got done with that going. I think we undershot them. I think they're going to be better than that. I feel pretty good where we have Iowa State at number 23. Thanks again to Randy Peterson from the Des Moines Register for spending some time with us here on Sports Nightly. When we come back, we'll talk some Major League Baseball. Our insider, Lane Grindle, is next. Well, coming to us from outside today, a little social distancing by Lane Grindle.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous day in Wisconsin. Figured I'd take advantage of it, and it also gets me away from the noise inside my house. So that seemed like a proper thing to do, too, for the interview.
Well, we're one day away from the start of the season. You've had a chance to call some inter-squad games in an empty big league ballpark. What was that like for you?
Well, it's different for sure. It's not what we're used to. Probably the closest thing at the major league level that we've ever experienced is Marlins Park in Miami, because they just don't draw very many fans there. And so when you're calling games there, there's a lack of energy, of course, in the ballpark. But really, it kind of brought me back to some of the games that you and I called together at Nebraska when we were at Minute Maid Park in Houston calling tournament games there, where there just weren't that many fans there for a couple of those games. Also, Target Field. We called a lot of games over a couple of different years at the Big Ten tournament at Target Field, and there were, very few fans in the ballpark for those. So probably, a little bit reminiscent of those times. However, the pumped-in crowd noise, as I told you last week, it makes a huge difference. It really does. You can't hear everybody talking to each other. You can't hear somebody yelling from the dugout at the umpire, and I think it protects a little bit of that part of the game. And I do think that's important. And we talked to a lot of the guys while we were doing these inter-squads. We mic'd up guys, and they actually had earpieces in where we could talk to them. And one of the nights, last Friday night, we had Brock Hold on with us, and he talked about the little nuances of communication during a game that you wouldn't be able to do if there's nobody in the ballpark and there was no sound. For an example, when you're playing third base and there's an off-speed pitch coming, you can't see the signs from third, so you don't know. But the shortstop might give you a little, so you know that that's coming, so you can maybe cheat a little bit closer to the line. You can't do that when there's no sound, because now the batter knows that off-speed's coming, right? Well, so you have the crowd noise pumped in, and guys can communicate a little bit easier and keep it away from the opposition while doing so. So I think those little things with that pumped-in crowd noise are going to make the game a little bit better.
Well, you can either whistle like that from the shortstop, third baseman, because the batter's hearing, trash cans getting beat up in the underneath the stands by the other team, right?
That was one of the early jokes in all of this was, well, with no fans, everybody those trash cans just fine down in Houston. Yeah, I do think that that was going to be a little bit harder. Not that any of that was going to be going on anymore in Houston, but yeah, it's still going to be a storyline. I mean, we kind of put that story to bed for a few months, obviously, through all of this, but we're going to hear more about that and guys getting hit and stuff like that, I think, over the next couple of weeks. That story is probably going to come back a little bit for a while.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Big story today was Mookie Betts. He has come to terms with the Dodgers, a long-term, mega money deal. Was this surprising? A lot of people thought he would play the 1 year and then play it out from there. What are you surprised by the Betts deal today?
I'm a little surprised by it. I'm not surprised the Dodgers wanted to lock him down. I don't think you make the move they made without trying to extend him long-term. And I'm not surprised that he took that deal. It's a very good deal for Mookie Betts, 12 years, $365 million. That's a really good deal for Mookie Betts. This is different than the NFL. It's guaranteed money. I mean, that's impressive stuff. So I think he did really well, especially in the climate we're in, where there's a lot of uncertainty about the finances of the game over the next couple of years. I think they clearly were down the road quite a ways with this before everything hit in March, would be my guess, just by looking at it on the surface. But I think it's a good deal for Mookie Betts. I think the Dodgers now made a deal that's not going to be relegated to just 60 games and hopefully the postseason. Now they extend him out for 12 years, and they got to be thrilled about that. But it didn't come at nothing. This was a steep deal, but he's one of the best players in the game, and so it's hard to fault it.
Big money, not quite Mahomes money, but big money nonetheless for Mookie Betts. Lane, the other thing that's going on is Toronto can't find a home. The country of Canada is not going to allow teams to come in there, not quarantine, so they can't play games at Rogers Park, their ballpark in Toronto. Pittsburgh, I guess, today said, no, we're not going to let you use PNC Park. Where's this thing headed with the Jays?
I'm not sure. I think from everything I've read so far, and I think there's going to be more that comes out on this over the next 24 hours or so, because they've got to move fast. I mean, the time's ticking. I think their first home game is July 29. Is that right, Greg?
Sounds right. Yeah.
I believe for the Toronto Blue Jays or the whoever Blue Jays, wherever they're going to be playing from this coming year. They got the Nationals coming in for their first home series, so they've got to figure out where they're going. Hotels that they've got to get reserved. This isn't something you can do just 36 hours out. They're going to have to figure this out pretty soon. I think that they had some contingencies in place from what I've read if the Pirates thing fell through. It sounds like most of those contingencies are major league ballparks. I am, of course, a little bit biased. I'm sure you are too. I feel like Omaha would be a great home. I think TD Ameritrade Park would be their own ballpark that they could more easily social distance in, because that's complicated. I think intaking two teams into one ballpark, one, getting the schedule to work right, two, just getting guys in and out of the stadium safely and by following the health protocols, that's really complicated. And now you're asking even more of whoever that team is that's hosting them. You're asking even more out of their security staff, their HR staff, their medical people. And I think it's harder to pull off than people realize. And so if you just went to Omaha, you'd have it to yourself. And I think it'd be a little bit easier to figure out. I don't know that it's going to happen. I've never heard anything that gives Omaha a ton of momentum. And I know geographically it doesn't really fit in the AL East, which is probably a bit of a concern too. But I really believe one of the easiest plug-and-play situations for the Blue Jays would be to move to Omaha for these next 60 games. You might be able to have fans at some point, and you might even be able to salvage a little bit of your budget by doing so, because you know the people would show up. Even in the midst of a pandemic, I think a lot of people would show up as long as you had it safe and socially distanced in a responsible fashion. And I think it would actually be a pretty good situation for the Blue Jays if they looked into it.
Well, when you talk about convenience, airport's right there by the ballparks, nice hotels, 5-star hotels close by. I mean, it would be easy in and out for teams to get in there. You're right, a little bit longer flights for the Bostons and the New Yorks and the Tampas and the Baltimores to come that way. But still, the convenience of the airports, all that stuff might make up for it. But we'll see how that plays out. Also, you're going to get ready to implement some new rules. You knew about the three batter minimum for a reliever to face. You've known about that. But there's some other things, starting a runner at second base and extra innings. What of the new rules is maybe catching the biggest flack from the players?
Well, I think it's going to be hard for everybody to wrap their arms around starting with a guy at second base and extra innings. But I think everybody understands, too, this is the year to experiment with these types of things if you're going to do it. Nobody wants to play 15 innings, come back and have to play the next day. The thing we're not talking about, Greg, is this is 60 games in 66 days. We haven't even started discussing rainouts and things of that nature. There's going to be some of those. And so now you're squeezing even more games into a smaller window at that point. So this is going to help eliminate some of those issues. It's going to protect pitching, especially early on. You won't have those lengthy games in the same way. I kind of think it's going to be interesting to see which managers approach it, with small ball. And, depending on who's up first in the inning and you got a guy at second, do you bunt and get the guy to third with one out and play the odds that way? Or, obviously if you're number 3 hitters up, you might not do that. So I think all that stuff's going to be interesting. It's going to bring a little bit of strategy into the game that may be leaving with the DH being now universal, because I will miss some of the strategy and some of the double switches and everything that goes on in the National League. And this may bring a little bit of strategy that wasn't there before into play in extra innings. But I think that's going to be the one that's going to feel the most different and a little bit strange to some guys, and it might take them a little bit to get used to it. But like a lot of things, I mean, I had a hard time coming to grips with just putting a guy at first on an intentional walk, right? It just felt like, no, they should throw 4 out of the zone, and that should be the way that it is. And now that we do it, you don't even realize that that's what goes on. I mean, it's just it immediately became part of the game. I never sit around and think, man, I wish they were throwing 4 pitches on intentional walks now. And this may end up being one of those deals too, where once we do it for a few games and you see it happen, you're like, well, okay, everybody lived. It was fine, and we move on from it. I think this could have that effect too. It just might not right now when we're sitting around debating everything feel as natural as some of the other things are. The DH is going to be, I think, a positive. I'll miss things about the pitchers hitting. The Brewers have some guys that can flat out hit. Brandon Woodruff can really hit, and I'll miss seeing him step into the box. But I do think it'll be fun to see Ryan Braun get more at-bats. Keston Hiura can have a day off in the field, and you can go around with every team and have some of those same type of situations with guys, being able to still stay in the lineup a little bit more consistently, but rest their bodies at the same time by not playing in the field. So I think there will be a positive overall with the universal DH.
Very good. All right, last thing. Our next segment, we're going to pick our divisional winners. Give me a dark horse. Give me somebody that you think's maybe better than a lot of the experts thinks have divisions sewn up. Who would it be?
Well, I like the Chicago White Sox in the Central to be, and I don't know if they're a dark horse. I think everybody likes the moves they've made and the talent that they have. But a lot of people have the Twins crowned as winning the Central, and I get it. They have a really tough offense to navigate if you're the opposing pitcher. But I like the White Sox. I like a lot of things that they bring to the table. I think they're going to be interesting. The Rays are always a dark horse, even though they're really good every year. They're always a dark horse. You never know what they might be able to get done, kind of like the A's in the AL West. And in the NL, I think the Padres and White Sox, I talked about the White Sox in the AL. The Padres are kind of my White Sox of the NL. I like a lot of the moves they have. They've got young prospects that are ready to go. And they might be better over 60 games, too, because they got some young guys in some spots that may perform better in a 60-game sprint than being able to navigate the 162 marathon because they're a little bit younger. So I think the Padres could be a little bit dangerous. The Dodgers' rotation's not quite what we thought it was going to be. David Price opted out. It doesn't look as good, although, the Dodgers always seem to find a way to make it work. But over 60 games, they have one bad 10-day stretch, and the Padres get hot. I think the Padres could give them a run in the West.
Very good. Interesting stuff. Well, here we are. This is great. It's taken a long time to get to this point, but it gets underway with a couple of games tomorrow, and everybody plays on Friday. Enjoy yourself. I know you're glad to get it back and get the boys on the field again.
Yeah, it's time, and we're excited for it. Can't wait.
There he is, Lane Grindle, our Major League Baseball insider, joining us on our Woodhouse Auto Family Hotline, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. And Lane's segment brought to you by Nebraska Realty. The real estate market is strong, and Nebraska Realty is here to help you safely buy and sell homes across the state. Come see why there is no place like Nebraska Realty. When we come back, the boys will join me. We'll make our picks for division winners in this shortened season of 60 games. That's coming up next. Here on a Wednesday night, Greg Sharp, Tim Curran with you, about to be joined by Josh Hookham, as we make our picks for Major League Baseball, the divisional picks. Let's start in the American League East. Tim, let's go back east. Who do you like in that division?
Give me the Bronx Bombers. With just 60 games, my kind of reasoning was if they have the most talent, you got guys like Garrett Cole, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton. I could see them just kind of getting their foot on the gas pedal and not letting up. I could also see the Rays winning it, but give me the Yankees.
Okay, Josh?
Yep, I'm going with the Yankees as well. And the only, like Tim said, the only other team that I can see making a push in that division is the Rays. They have the pitching that's set up for a short season. I think they're the most they have the most depth of any team as far as pitching goes, probably in all Major League Baseball. But I'm still going the Yankees. Garrett Cole is a big addition for them, and then obviously their lineup is pretty tough too. So I'm going the Yankees, and I also have Ben, Austin, and Brett's picks as well, and all of them said the Yankees too.
Good. I'll be the odd duck. I'm going Tampa. Give me the Rays.
I like
Not
it.
the homeless Blue Jays?
Give me the Rays. No, the Blue Jays did not really cross my mind. All right, let's go to the Central. Josh, I'll let you lead us off with the AL Central.
Well, I'm going to homer this one. I've got the Twins.
Shock of all shocks.
Yeah, there's no way I wasn't going to go with the Twins. Now, I know that Lane, in the last segment, he said that he thinks that the White Sox have a really good shot to challenge in that division, and he's probably not wrong. Like, they've built a lot of good young talent, and I think that they're going to be a good team. But I think Cleveland can challenge for that division too. So it's going to be tough. It's not going to be a cakewalk for the Twins by any means, but given what they did last year, I think that they are the favorite in that division. So I'm going Twins.
Okay, what do our absentee ballots say?
So Ben and Austin both say Minnesota as well. They go with the Twins, but then Brett goes out on a limb and he says White Sox. So he's with Lane Grindle on that one.
All right. Well, I'm gonna conform on this one. I'm with the Twins on this one as well. Tim.
Fair.
Yeah, I'm doubling down, tripling down, I guess. Give me the Twins. Never thought I'd live to see the day where a Minnesota Twins team was winning over 100 games and smashing home run records. But there you have it.
Okay, all but one go with the Twins. All right, go out west. I'm going to lead off on this one. I think the Astros have the most talent, but I think there's going to be a lot of distractions with Houston because of the cheating scandal that they're coming off of. I think that will mess with them enough to let the Oakland A's win the AL West. So I am picking the A's in the West. Tim?
Man.
I also have the A's. I haven't seen Moneyball, but I know they have a solid franchise. I also know the Astros can't cheat anymore, which just opens the door wide up, and here come the Oakland A's.
Well, apparently the rest of us, myself, and then Ben, Austin, Brett, we think that either the Astros won in spite of, it wasn't the cheating that did it, or they're going to be able to still be cheating because all four of us went with the Astros. So we're different than I'm glad that you and Greg, you and Tim are kind of throwing some different stuff out there.
Yeah, it's boring if we're all the same, right?
That's good. I like it.
All right, let's go to the National League. Tim, you're up first. You get the East. Who do you like in the East?
Give me the Braves. Ronald Acuna Jr., need I say more? They also have Marcelo Zuna now, Mike Soroka. I mean, I think whenever you have a lot of talent all horsed on one team, I just go by the theory of it's a sprint, not a marathon. They might just jump out early and kind of keep a hold of things. And you could probably make an argument for a couple other teams, but Braves all the way.
Yeah, I have the Braves as well. The Nationals are probably up there, and maybe the Phillies, maybe the Mets. There's some different teams that are decent, but I think the Braves are in a class of their own, and the rest of the guys agree with what we've had so far. Ben, Austin, and Brett all have the Braves.
Well, this is boring. So I've got the Braves, too.
Oh, man.
Clean sweep for
Not
the
the
Braves.
Marlins? You didn't go with the Marlins? Come on.
No, they were. I considered them for like a millisecond and then moved on to the next thing.
Fair.
All right, Josh, go to the Central.
Okay, this is where it gets really fun. There's a lot of diversity of opinions in the Central in the National League. I have the Reds, and they've put together a really solid pitching staff. And
Luis Castillo.
Yeah, your boy, the Harriers ace, dominated in the postseason. So, yeah, I've got the Reds as the division winner. And then Austin agrees with me. He has Cincinnati as well. But then Ben goes with the Cardinals, which I'm guessing Tim is also going to go with. And then the Brewers was Brett's pick. So we have three different teams between the four of us.
Wow.
So far.
I'm Reds, too. I think I really like their offseason acquisitions. I think they're ready to kind of take a big jump, and I think the shortened season will help them out some. Tim.
Get this Reds talk out of here. Cardinals all the way. Hopefully I just kind of will that into existence by saying Cardinals. I mean, you got Jack Flaherty, you got Adam Wainwright, the greatest of all time, Matt Carpenter, Dexter Fowler, Paul Goldschmidt, who's going to set the all-time home run record, even with just 60 games. He's going to smash 120 home runs. Two-game, calling it right now. So
Cy Young winner Jack Flaherty, Tim. He was the Mammoth case over there. So
it's true.
So did we pick every team in the division?
No, we didn't cover the Cubs.
The Cubs.
Or the Pirates, actually. So we did 3 of the 5. Yep.
Okay, 3 of the 5. Wow. How about that? That will be interesting to see how that comes out. All right, we finish in the NL West. I'm going to be boring here. I know Lane talked about the Padres, but I think the Dodgers have too much. I think that lineup's too good. The Dodgers are my pick. Tim?
Yeah, it has to be the Dodgers. I mean, you'd need Mookie to tear his Achilles and Clayton to blow his arm out and Cody Bellinger. I mean, you'd have to have a disaster here for the L.A. to not win this. I mean, they won the pennant like 2 years in a row, a couple years ago, so they're probably even bound to win the World Series. I'm calling it right now. We're not predicting World Series winners yet, but the Dodgers are going to win this weird, short World Series. Calling it right now.
I think they're the betting favorite to do that, by the way.
Right. I think that the favorites will be the Dodgers against the Yankees. That's kind of I think the front line. I also have the Dodgers, and it's a clean sweep from all of us. I actually have wild card picks from the other guys if you want to hear those.
I didn't prepare for that, but yeah, go ahead if they did.
Okay, sounds good. Well, in the AL wild card, we'll start there. Ben went with the Athletics and Rays, and that's who I put down too. Austin goes with the Rays and the White Sox, and then Brett has the Twins and Rays. So all teams that were mentioned among us, so no new teams in there. And then in the National League, Ben has the Nationals and the Reds. I've got the Nationals and Padres as my wildcard teams. Austin has the Nationals and Cardinals, and Brett has the Nationals and the Cubs. So the Cubs making a late appearance too.
Tim, did you do wild cards?
I did not. I came woefully underprepared.
Well, this all could be outdated if Major League adds
But
two
that's what
more
I was going to say.
teams in the next 12 hours.
Very good point. Well, yeah, that's a great point. Then we're going to have to pick like 4 wild cards and.
All right.
If you're not first, you're last, as a wise man once said. So we're not interested in those guys.
All you other guys get extra credit because you went above and beyond the picks. You put the wild cards in there. But isn't that crazy? I just saw something also on Twitter that they're talking about eliminating third base. I mean, I don't know if they're going to go that far.
Come on,
just to take third base out of the game. No,
come on.
No,
I liked it. Basically 2 divisions we kind of locked in together, right? We locked in all the Dodgers, and we all locked in the Braves.
Yep.
Yeah, that surprises me a little bit in the National League East. We all locked into the Braves. But.
Yeah.
All right, it gets good going tomorrow. Yankees Nationals the first game, Dodgers Giants the second game. ESPN has a broadcast of both. It's Major League Baseball underway tomorrow. 866-HUSKER-1, 866-487-5371 if you want to sound off on any of the day's topics. We're back to wrap up the hour next. 866-487-5371. It's just been refreshing the last couple of days, Tim, having some Major League Baseball, even though they're inter-squad games or just exhibition games, and even the little snippet of NBA that I watched today, to see the sports world kind of come alive again. It's just been so dormant for the last 3-4 months.
If I'm dreaming, don't pinch me. I don't want to wake up quite yet. I mean, it's been so long. I mean, you're looking at what, like 4 months at the least of the last time there was a meaningful snap or bounce of the ball or anything. I mean, it's just been such a long march to this. And now finally, even though we're getting these weird abbreviated seasons and different formats and there's no fans, which I didn't think would bother me that much, but even having watched, I know you're a big soccer fan, Greg, so I'm sure you've been glued to the Premier League. They've restarted their season a little while ago, and watching those games with no fans, with that fake crowd noise they pump in, it's just a little bit less. But hey, we can't really complain because we've had it's just been a desert, and now you just have that drop of water, and you're like, okay, I'll take more of this, please.
Do you think folks generally, and we're the three of us, we're big sports fans, so I'm not sure, we're not really kind of the average person. Do you think the average person has missed sports?
Oh, they'd have to have. I mean, I think even so just to take your mind off the kind of, I mean, you look at the news. I mean, the news has been, which is already not fun under normal circumstances, but the last 90 days and plus and beyond have just been nothing but kind of doer and doom and gloom. And so finally something to talk about, a mindless pennant race, is basically like sweet salvation. So just more of this, please.
Yeah, I think the casual sports fan has obviously missed March Madness. And even casual sports fans will watch some Major League Baseball, and to not have it at all. In fact, the Royals televised their 2 exhibition games this week with Houston, and it was the highest watched program on television in the Kansas City market. I mean, that tells me right there, yes, fans, even casual fans, have missed sports and are just dying to get something back. So I'm glad it's been able to do that. Hey, tomorrow night we got a big show for you tomorrow. We're going to not do 1 but 2 position coaches for the Cornhuskers, both linebackers coaches. Barrett Rood for the inside guys, Mike Dawson for the outside guys will join us. We'll break down our rankings for the linebackers. Teddy Greenstein will join us from the Chicago Tribune for tomorrow night, and we'll continue our top 25 countdown. So a huge show coming your way tomorrow night. Another hour coming up here.